Pete, you've stolen my exclamation mark. How dare you?
You got me.
How dare you? Yeah, if for people not watching the video on YouTube, which is literally all of you, for the most part, we record this on Riverside, and we get to type in our name. And Pete added an exclamation mark, which, if I may say, is a very Mark Fisherian kind of move.
But I believe I did that after seeing that you pivoted to the heart sign, the sideways heart that you have.
That's
So
true. That's true.
there was an
That's true.
opportunity,
I
and I
did sort of
claimed it.
abandon. I can't be a hog of all the various non-letter type of accoutrement we can add to our name. Well, anyway, hi everyone. Welcome to the Business of Unicorns podcast, where we will talk eventually about some fitness business stuff. Pete, how's your day going?
My day is going well. I have minimal complaints. I appreciate you asking. I'm always uncomfortable with this question because I know that we don't publish like same day or even same week.
Yeah.
And so when you ask that question and I answer it and then we listen to it or a piece of it a month or something later, I try and remember the day and I never can.
Yeah. I think people will remember that. I don't think you're out of integrity to. I'm certainly not asking how will you be on the day this podcast drops.
Oh, I can tell you our pool's going to be
I know
open.
right now. That's great. That's great.
I'm going to be good on that day. Today it's not open.
Your family will heal from being a vector of disease.
Fair. This is true. We will move on from, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but there's COVID still in the world, and somehow it ended up in my
It is a thing. Oh, no, now no one's going to listen. Oh, no, we're not going to. We're going to get blocked by Google. Okay. Well, but anyway, I'm glad to hear the family's okay. But yeah, it's actually still a thing, and it still can be very painful when you have it. Particularly, I just feel bad when it's let's say if it happens to be a child, because they can't take anything for it, right? They're just like, sorry, drink water.
Yeah, that's been the feedback. And I think we kind of phased out of the stage where we kept, like, for example, I don't have tests in my house anymore. And we didn't, as I told you off air, this wasn't because we were like, hey, we desperately need to test for COVID. It was because we're like, hey, I think Colin has strep. Let's go get some antibiotics. And they
for which you could do something for, yes.
Exactly. And wouldn't you know it,
not that you want strep, but
they mixed in a few bonus tests at that appointment. And
okay,
what do you know? Here's where we are.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, on to happier topics. First, I should say, in the event you're a new listener, and for some reason you haven't gotten yet our Raise Your Rates playbook. Actually, by the time this goes live, I'm planning on some mild updates, but this is a done for you guide with some copy pastable scripts, some principles. It's very simple. It's just a couple of pages, but it will give you the exact playbook we use time again. And this will actually maybe even lead into our conversation today. It will time and time again. We talk with the gym owner. We're like, oh, I think your rates could be a little bit higher. And if you're concerned about doing it, which is very common, sometimes you're just nervous because you don't have to play. Well, sign up at the link in the show notes, and we'll show you exactly how to do it while minimizing pushback.
Sign up.
Speaking of what I alluded to, yeah. So this is actually a little top of mind for me because, well, Pete, every time I talk to a gym owner, I feel like invariably what I say is like, when was the last time you raised rates? I think your rates can go up a little bit. Now, I should note before we dig into this topic, I'll maybe add one other thing about the raise your rates topic. I think it is possible actually for people to do what we do to get a little too knee-jerky with raising your rates, because sometimes there really are, this is dark, sometimes there really are problems with the fulfillment. It's actually not worth more than the way below market charges because the product is so bad. We're usually assuming that's not going to be the case, and more often than not, people are so massively undercharged and there's room to go. But I would say this, even though it is sort of like the knee-jerk gym business coach thing to be like, raise your rates. And even though that is usually true, I want to make space for, there might be some occasions where that's not the case, right? And in fact, today, we're going to talk a little about some of the things that I have been observing working with a bunch of elite gym owners. So in brief, you may or may not know this, but we now have a tier in the Unicorn Society where you're going to get full Mark and Michael, right? So a lot of you know, I'm responsible for a lot of the plays, and I help create a lot of the IP and the systems. But for the most part, you'll work with our team of amazing coaches, and we'll hang out on like an office hour, or we will, hang out at a live event. But for me to spend time with people going one-on-one, I've sort of self-diagnosed. I actually don't think it's like my best thing, but I've realized something, Pete. So maybe I'll start with that realization about me, and we'll talk about the trends I've seen from elite gym owners. It's actually, I always was like, I'm a bad coach. And it's actually, you know what it is? It's not that I think I'm a bad coach. Maybe I'm a bad coach, actually. So maybe we don't discount that possibility. But what I've discovered is I don't like, and I don't think I'm great if I only have like 30 to 60 minutes with someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like too long, but not long enough. I either want to like rapid fire come my office hour, or as has been happening when people sign up for the Leadership Society, which includes a bunch of exclusive bolt-on days to our retreats. It also is a private WhatsApp group for our community within the Unicorn Society. It is exclusive access to me and Michael on a WhatsApp bat phone, and it is some other exclusive trainings. One of the things that we do is a annual kickoff, a deep dive of the members, where myself or Michael will get everything there is to know about the gym. We're talking like all the dashboards, all the P&Ls. We'll look over your websites, your Instagram, your funnel, your strategies, your plans, your goals, like everything about the business. And that, Pete, it turns out I like. So like, apparently I just don't like the in-between. I don't like trying to get up to speed in an hour. I want to know everything I can know about your business. And then I want to have several hours to really dig in. I should mention that if you're interested in this, happy to chat about it. You can click on the link for Brainstorm Call, which is likely somewhere around this. I would just note we do have some requirements of a minimum amount of total owner compensation and length of owning a gym, and a strong suggestion of having a strong number 2 in place already. And the reason being, we love our newbies, but this is a no newbie space, right? So definitionally, these people are like pretty sophisticated, which is part of why these calls are so interesting, because we're not dealing with beginner stuff virtually ever. We're dealing with more sophisticated stuff, which is why I wanted to sort of open up today's conversation around some of the things I'm seeing from a true group of like absolute like killers, like absolute like dangerously impressive people.
Yeah,
I guess I'll share some of those things.
I want to pause you and say, I've never once thought you were a bad coach, but I have found you to be a bored coach from time to time. And I think you just you got bored when you couldn't go deep, and you just had to do the real superficial stuff in a half hour. So it's fun to see you re-energized and
it's not fun
doing 3-hour coaching deep dives.
It's a bit of a surprise, I gotta say too, and I'll also give credit to a couple of people who've done. We also, another thing that is available, if you want to reach out, hello@businessforunicorns.com, we can tell you more. But I also, you can buy me for a day or a half day. Like, some people are just not joiners. They just want to buy Mark, put Mark in their pocket. And basically I'll do the same thing, but we'll just do it for a full day or a half day. Either do it on Zoom, or you fly to New York if you want. That's completely up to you how you want to do it. And same thing. Like, I love it because I get to go so deep and ask millions of things. Because I just find, for me, and again, I think this is not turning to like therapy about Mark's deficiency as a coach, but like, I just find it's hard unless I have a lot of context to really know that my guidance is helpful. Because the other thing that I've observed, I'm sure you've seen this too, Pete, is, sometimes when people come into, like, let's say a more typical 30 to 60 minute call, you find yourself oftentimes doing a little bit of, first of all, firefighting, right? If something is coming up, there's a real recency bias, and sometimes you need to fight the fires, right? So that's not an unreasonable use of these calls. But not only that, you're relying a little bit on the gym owner to assess what is the rate limiting factor, right? And sometimes the gym owner, although well-intentioned, is trying to solve the wrong thing, right? Not to be like overly reductive, but the whole game is you're just looking for the bottleneck. Mm-hmm. Right? You're just looking for the constraint. There's that famous business book. Pete, did you ever read The Goal?
Oh my gosh, I did. I had to read that during my MBA program.
Private college, right? Yeah. Turns out The Goal is a great book. I should reread it because I haven't read it in years. But anyway, the whole, like, there's a lot to it. But one of the main things of The Goal is, in any business, there's usually like one thing that's holding everything else back. And a lot of the job of the business owner, with help from outside eyes, to figure out, okay, what is the constraint? What is the number one thing that's holding everything else back? And in practice, the other thing to understand before you go on this journey is what you do is you might say you're then trying to break the next thing, right? Like that's the game. You just keep breaking the next thing, where you're like, oh, I didn't have enough leads. Like, oh, now I have enough leads. But like, oh crap, I don't have good follow-up. Or like, oh, now my follow-up is good. But like, oh, sales conversions are not good. Like, oh, sales conversion is good, but we're not getting, our retention is not where it needs to be, right? And you're constantly just sort of shuffling through those. And, I often think of our job it's certainly been my experience doing this of late. I feel almost like a doctor, if you will. Not I'm not really a doctor, but a doctor in the sense that if you think about what a doctor does, they look at a bunch of different vital signs. And a good doctor, when you have time, and I realize that's not always the case in our medical system, but if you have like a, I have a dear friend and a concierge doctor, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, Doc Who Lives. And Spencer, has known me for 10 years, knows me very well psychologically, understands my life. So he is able to really treat the whole person, as you will. And that's ideally what this does, because while I will say there's a lot of value, of course, in understanding qualitatively what the owner is thinking and feeling and what their goals on, all that stuff is a piece. I love it when I can pull all the data, right? Because I'm a little bit of a data junkie here. So I don't want like just blood pressure and cholesterol. I'm going to pull a lot of stuff, right? So when we do these, I'm looking at tons and tons of pieces of data, and allows me to quickly ascertain, just because I just do this every second I'm awake, essentially, to be like, okay, well, this is the whole, this is the thing that needs to be focused on. And again, this has been a very interesting experience doing it with people in the Leadership Society, because again, these are very, very accomplished people. I mean, these are like some of the best, hands down, gym owners in the industry. So it's sort of fun to try to look for, like, if I can find some pieces here and there to improve things. Sometimes, candidly, there's not a ton, right? Like, and the good news is usually we can sharpen the saw. Usually there's, because we all benefit from an outside eye, right? Even if someone is very, very sophisticated. But one thing I will start with here, and then maybe we can like chat about this a little bit, is when I'm working with a more advanced gym owner, it is, on the one hand, it is very rare that any of the vital signs are off. And two, when the vital signs are off, if the gym is thriving, right? If the biological organism is really thriving, I am not necessarily going right to put them on meds, right? Which is to say, if I'm not seeing the exact numbers I want, but net, the body is very like, the gym is very healthy, it's profitable, the owner is happy, and we seem like we're making progress, and the owner has a real reason why they're veering away from conventional wisdom, I am often reticent to wholeheartedly suggest changes. I want to make sure the owner knows what the argument is for conventional wisdom for something like a lead follow-up flow or a first offer or fill in the blank. But then if we're getting to a good place and the gym is profitable and the owner's happy and they're working a reasonable time and it seems like things are growing, then we find yourself in this weird situation where a lot of my external facing marketing, I have to speak in generalities, right? I have to speak what's going to work for most people most of the time. And I just find that with the more advanced people, there's more bandwidth for me to riff and to, in some situations, say like, nope, keep doing what you're doing. Your reasoning is correct, based on your market or your skill set or your brand or your audience. You actually should keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, because I think I am operating a business that would probably fall under this category. If you were to
100%,
jump in and
100%.
pick us apart and come to realize that I don't have a digital ad spend, I just don't run the same systems that we advocate for. It doesn't mean I don't believe in them.
100%.
It's just I've been running a system for 18 years that has generated leads. Now, I'll tell you that where my mind with this goes, one, I read an interesting book recently. It was Dan Heath's newest book called Reset. And it was basically just saying that there are kind of glaring problems in businesses that are, as we'll say, they've been in play as long as mine have. And usually they're just the legacy of old solutions. And those solutions were improv. Like, we built workarounds around everything.
Yes.
And the system that we have is really designed to solve the original problem. And every little improv that we create creates an inefficient system. And the gym owners you're talking about, we might be collecting nice paychecks and look good, kind of bottom line looks fine, but we're running these kind of woefully inefficient operations. So that's one thing that I would look at. But then beyond that, I would say, if you came into my operation, you're like, Pete, you're not generating leads in a traditional way, but by God, you're generating leads. The thing that I would say is, people like myself need to be reminded that just because we don't want to do it the way everyone else is doing things doesn't mean we shouldn't systemize the way we're doing ours. And so we get so comfortable with generating lead flow through our kind of unique and constantly growing network that the leads keep coming, and I don't build a system for like really thoroughly manufacturing them through that system. And so I don't need to run your like, Facebook advertising or Google advertising model, but I do need to build something that I can point at it and say, this is our machine. This is how we generate our leads.
Mm-hmm.
And then continually try and
Yep.
fine tune that. But I have fallen into the habit in the past of being like, no, we're just really good at creating awareness. The leads are going to keep coming. We're good. Just trust me, which is not sustainable. It creates a lot of exhausting downturns, not a lot, but periodic exhausting downturns in our business. So
Yeah.
systems matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard when you don't have any levers, but what levers one has can be different, And I think like, yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic, right? Because I'm always reluctant to change something that's not working, but I think that's probably a good heuristic for how to think about it. I do want to make sure whatever's happening is being done in an intentional way, even if it is different than what I would recommend, right? Because the factors I think that are going to allow for both unusual results are also going to lend themselves to using unusual strategies, because usually when you get those sort of results, sometimes it's the function of the market, right? Sometimes it's like a unique market geographically. Obviously your gym is very unique and it functions not exactly like an online business, but not all of the business are people that are willing to travel, right? So most gyms are not going to be able to do that. So it would be unhelpful for you to like do a lot of conventional wisdom, because you'd be leaving a lot of business on the table if you did that. Because you do want to leverage the skill sets you have, right? Another thing that I say a lot, maybe it should be, actually, I don't know if it's controversial. No one's ever been like, that's not true. But I actually really don't think it's helpful to say success leaves clues. I think there's actually a lot of survivorship bias, and I think for a long time, I can remember a few years ago looking at like, with love and respect, Cressy Sports Performance, Mark Fisher Fitness, Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, and being like, like these are very unusual gyms that like had a very unusual amount of success and weren't necessarily doing things the way that you might suggest for the average gym in the average market with, again, I say with respect, the owner of average skill, right? There was a lot going on. There was an unusual amount of like back of house operational chops. There were teams that were unusually developed. There was a dancing monkey that was like unusually good at what they need to be for that business. And I see sometimes some of the most sophisticated gyms, if people try to actually model what they are doing, they might not succeed, because oftentimes those gyms are successful because they just had a unique opportunity or market or a unique skill set that they were able to leverage. And that's not necessarily great advice for everybody else, because while I do think, listen, people do have to customize things, right? Like, I think that's another thing I say I'm blue in the face is like, listen, it's silly to make it up all by yourself. That's completely ludicrous. You should be working off a proven model like we have in the Unicorn Society. And it is equally silly to think you can just copy paste it, throw your hands up and think like, now it's done. I don't have to customize it at all, right? Having said that, we probably do at least want to again consider what are the proven models that tend to work most of the time. And if you are not in a place where you're getting results like a Cressy Sports Performance or some of our Leadership Society members that are doing other things, if I look at your results as the doctor and I see your blood pressure is elevated and I see your cholesterol is too high and I see you're pre-diabetic, we might want to consider some of the more traditional interventions, right? Like, because you're not in a place at that point where you are only getting a couple of leads per week to convince me like, yeah, I don't like to do traditional forms of marketing. I very much believe that if I'm great at the service, then people will bring their friends organically, and that's how I want to grow. Or another one you hear, I don't want to discount my services with a low barrier offer. I don't want to hurt my perceived value in the market. Well, that's okay, but you're only getting 3 like trials per month, and your business is not only stagnant, but you're making less money month over month, year over year. And that is the thing I think that is like unhelpful and challenging. And again, where I think having data is helpful, because my observations and my suggestions and my guidance can be based on looking at, not an unlimited number of things, but not a small number of things, right? That's why I'm going to want to know, profit margin. I want to know payroll as a percentage of revenue. I want to understand total owner compensation. I want to look at the last 3 months of your P&L. I want to look at the last couple of years of your P&L. I want to understand your utilization. I want to understand how much square footage you have. I want to understand your rent as a percentage of your square footage, how much you're spending on market as a percentage of revenue, right? I want to look at how many leads we're getting top of funnel. I want to understand your sales conversion percentage. What is your lead to new member throughput, right? So if I know all that information, I kind of know what's going on, right? So again, if they all check out, I can give you more insight. And I would say that if those numbers are massively below par, I'm going to be less patient. I love you. I'm gonna be less patient with you. If you're telling me you're not going to want to try the conventional wisdom and you want to be like Apple doesn't discount. It's like, okay, but you don't have any clients. I don't know. Get off my lawn, Pete. You kids get off my lawn.
In some ways, I wish that there was a leadership society in 2014 when we were opening our second location, because you would have opened up our books and you would have looked at it and said, hey, you got so much key man risk here tied into Eric's name. And the way that you would have seen it is you would have realized that 17% of my revenue the year that he left to do that was coming from short-term consultations. And the reality was we were building this whole business around his name and his likeness and his unique expertise for this stuff. And if he was going to continue to deliver that service just in a different state under a different roof, well, guess what? 17% of your revenue is going to choose the beach and the Florida climate over Massachusetts.
Sure.
And so it's time to pivot.
Sure.
And that was kind of the moment that we needed to kind of go pro in systemizing this place and having, I would say, more of an intent on just being locally famous instead of having been a nationally famous baseball brand for as long as we were.
Yeah.
Because we just, we couldn't count on those leads all funneling to Massachusetts. It kind of depended where Eric was at a given time.
Sure.
And you would have spotted that instantaneously as you looked at the P&L and been like, there's a lot of money that's getting ready to walk out the door here in the next quarter or two. What are we doing? And we had to kind of get kicked in the teeth. And it wasn't instant. It was a lag, like big time lagging indicator. Sure, we figured that out in probably the end of 2015, early 2016. We started to feel that because we were set up well to keep sprinting when he first walked out the door. But sometimes it's nice to have a second set of eyes get into your books and dig around and see what you're failing to see.
I think so. And to your point, like, to some, it's like every business you're just creating the thing for the old you is such a cliche business thing. But it's like true, right? Like Mark Fisher Fitness was like created the gym that I wanted that I didn't have, right? But it wasn't for me at the time making it. I was making it for old Mark, right? For like Broadway loving Mark that wanted a nice place to work out where they knew what they were doing. Yep. And to some extent, the Unicorn Society was that. Now the Leadership Society, probably the same thing, right? Because you're right. Probably you and I, if we'd had access to this in 2014 to 2015, we've obviously done okay. It's not that we haven't, thrived over the years, but in retrospect, there might have been, we might have, made a few more dollars, saved some emotional grief, maybe avoided some stress. And certainly, maybe those were valuable lessons to get. But, here's another thing too, that I think is sometimes overly fetishized, is this like stubborn human desire, which I don't have, by the way, which is always surprising, I think, to people, because they think I'm like, he's a crazy guy. He's a crazy unit. He's going his own way. And that's true. But I don't fetishize figuring out on my own. Like I am, and this actually drives Keeler crazy a lot of times. I'm such a model guy. I want to like look at the benchmarks. I want to understand everything that everybody is succeeding is doing. Because I guess maybe that's another thing. Success doesn't necessarily leave clues if you look at like one successful thing that can lead you away. But if you look at 100 successful gyms, you will start to see patterns. Right. And in 2014, 2015, there wasn't even something like the Unicorn Society. I mean, that's not entirely fair. There were maybe some options, but they certainly weren't as available. You certainly didn't have as much information now available, things like this podcast, evidence number one. And you certainly didn't have a thing where this current generation of more advanced people, of which, frankly, gyms like ours in 2014, 2015 were in such a small number. There were just, I think, less of us doing those kinds of numbers and having those kinds of problems, that it's very satisfying to have a landing place for these sort of more elite gym owners to give them the more customized care. Because again, I'm assuming now yes, you have now done the modeling. Yes, now you probably need some more custom help and you need some discernment in what the suggestion is. Because I will also say, to advocate for what the Unicorn Society does, again, until you're a certain level of development, it is a little bit less complicated. You at least again want to try the conventional wisdom stuff. I think at a certain point of sophistication, it just doesn't work quite that way, right? And I would note, another takeaway from working with a lot of elite gym owners is something we all know to be true, is like there is always room for jello, right? Like I'll say, there's always some things we find, right? There's always some things, even if they're just like tests, and it's different than like, oh, this is unbelievably broken, we need to fix this. They tend to be more like, oh, wow, you're not gating in your opt-in when people are clicking on the way to the trial. Whoa, holy cow, we're not getting those emails. Whoa, let's look at that, right? Or, oh my gosh, we're not doing any follow-up with our never been clients. We're not routinely going back and making offers to our list of people that didn't convert. Oh my gosh, and then again, you make a decision, right? In some of these situations, the individual might say, I'm good for now, right? We might say like, look, yes, you're right. I'm not taking advantage of every opportunity, but I'm actually sufficiently busy right now that because there's only so many hours in the day, they might have other constraints, right? And doesn't happen often, but that's a happy situation to be in where like, no, my marketing is so good. I don't even want to hit it any harder than I am. However, I do want to make sure that I'm fixing the next thing, because invariably, again, you're going to break fulfillment, right? If you get very, very good at marketing and sales, you then have to go back to the other side of your business and be like, okay, are we consistently delivering on these services? Am I able to scale it up? Am I able to develop a team that can reproduce this? Is that part of the business also systemized, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, we've been guilty of that in the past, generating so many leads and bringing so many bodies through that it allowed us to forget to pay attention to and respond to attrition issues, because it's like, well, we can fill the assessment calendar. We'll solve that problem later. And, I've had 7,000 people come through the doors of my gym since 2007. And I can tell you right now, Mark, I don't have 7,000 active clients. And so there were lessons to be learned.
Right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
being a good lead generator allows you to forget about a lot of the important stuff. It's a blessing and a burden.
Yeah, you really can. And again, I'm not necessarily like advocating for that as like doing it intentionally, but it's not wrong that everything is downstream of like leads. I know it's like it can be frustrating for us, right? Because any gym owner, what do you need? I just need more leads, right? And maybe you do. It's possible that's all you need. It's possible the service really is that amazing, and for whatever weird reason, you're just not getting referrals. Again, I tend to question that because usually you're getting some referrals if it really is that spectacular. But let's assume the services are sufficient and you really sincerely just need enough leads. Then yeah, everything is downstream of that. And to your point, Pete, yeah, like if you're just getting so many leads, so many pieces of the funnel can be under optimized. It just kind of won't matter, I guess maybe I'd ask maybe like one final question as we bring this to a close. I'm wondering, not to put you on the spot here, but I'm wondering what trends you have seen, because certainly, you've worked very intimately with a lot of people in the Leadership Society over the last several years. You've also talked to a lot of our members who maybe aren't in the Unicorn Society yet, but are also very, very sophisticated. Even our collective extended network includes a lot of gym owners that have done very, very well. I'm wondering if there's any other thing that you have spotted as a trend among the elite gym owners, either in our group or even your personal network, that you've seen as a pattern that maybe more gym owners should get hip to?
Great question. And instantly my mind goes to talent development. So we're really good at creating like wizards at managing spreadsheets. We're great at getting people to manage their dashboard and be militant about lead follow-up and everything you've said in the last 5 minutes. We get people to think about those things and follow along. But the best, most flawless functioning spreadsheet in Google Sheets or in whatever platform you use is kind of useless if 2 of your 4 coaches quit tomorrow and you don't know where your first call is going to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying everybody needs an internship program, but I do think that everybody needs to a degree systemize their networking habits And I think we could be
Yeah.
better about advocating on that behalf, because I actually enjoy the kind of coaching that you can find problematic, which is like, let's put out a fire today. Let's do a 30-minute call. Let's get in here and let's solve a problem. I'm here. I'm interested. And that's good. We complement each other in that sense. I want to do the
Yes.
quick hitter stuff.
I enjoy it fine. I enjoy it
For
fine.
me, I
Yeah.
like it. But I'll tell you what, more often than not, in the last over 4 years of doing this with you guys now, it's the bottleneck is the people. And we get back into that bottleneck. One, read The Goal.
Yeah.
You reminded me, that was actually a really cool book. It was about widgets
Yeah.
more than it was about like offering supervised fitness services. However, I really do think that there is a lot to be said about us developing talent, because our biggest limitation is the ability to service the hours that we're offering to clients. So for me, the most common thing I'm seeing in these conversations is people who have really tidied up their systems and they're super organized and they can run the shit out of their business from an administrative standpoint, but they're stressed out of their minds because they are a 1.5 coach gym and they need 2. Or they have someone who gave notice and they just don't know how they're going to backfill that role, and they don't trust Indeed to do it. And I agree. And so this is not something you fix overnight, but I do think that we could get a lot more deliberate and intentional about how we get out there and we interact with as many gym owners as possible. And we go back to the days where we always showed up to a Perform Better Summit series. And if you're in a market where a gym like MBSC or CSP hosts a seasonal seminar, we get out there and we just talk.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pointing good outgoing interns in the direction of my peers all the time. I made an introduction to Mike Reinold, a champion, for a great intern that I just don't have a spot for on my team right now this past week. And Tim from BFU is considering one of my most recent best interns. And it's because those people are staying in touch with me. Mike will send me a message and just say, what's new around there? What do you guys have going on? We might be losing a pitching coach soon. Let me know if you have any ideas. And just keeping top of mind with a number of people means that we can kind of share all these resources that we have. And so I can help people find employees in my immediate region. But that's because we're doing the work all the time. We're always keeping lines of communication open. And to me, it's a long way of saying the answer to your question is the most common bottleneck is people. And we need to be thinking about how we either develop the relationships that fast track us to people who are not like purely entry level, or we got to be building those people ourselves.
Yeah. No, it's very true. We always say, all your problems at the beginning are money problems, and they all become people problems. And maybe as a final thing here, I didn't sincerely don't want this podcast to make a pitch fest, but I'd argue like that's the kind of thing too that I would note. I think you need probably more help with in conversations, like the people development thing, right? Because you can give some systems for that, but developing people, it's like a whole animal. And I think the frameworks of like a hiring system and an onboarding system and the nuts and bolts of how often you meet and your structure of team meetings and then the way those in-services are structured are all SOPable and should be turned into systems. And there's just a level of nuance there that it's not to say there's not that nuance in marketing, but I've always said that, listen, if there's people ever considering working with us, right? Like the real talk is, I think we're great at the marketing and sales stuff. We're great at the dashboard stuff. I think particularly the marketing and sales stuff, there's other people that are as good for sure. And not only that, but we have a course called Gym Growth Blast Off. You can find it on our website. I think by now that should be on our website, or email me, mark@businessunicorns.com. It's very affordable. And for the most part, if you run with that play, that stuff is not rocket science. Again, I don't mean to suggest there's not art involved. The people piece is a forever opportunity, and it's something we're always growing. And I say, with literally no humility at all, I think we're as good as anybody you're going to find when it comes to the people development piece. And I think collectively too, if you look at what, Pete and certainly Keeler with his doctorate, or what we've done at MFF, or the way Ben has run his gym over the past several years via Alicia, like you're just not going to find a better crew of people that are in deep on the people thing and just have just scads and scads of experience to take those SOPs and those playbooks, but help them use them in real time with real people, which is arguably the never-ending work of a lifetime. Because the people thing is, to quote Hemingway, that is a craft of which we are forever apprentices and of which there are no masters. Well, Pete, any other final thoughts before we bring her to a close?
I think I got to get some better quotes when I show up. You're quoting Hemingway. I'm quoting Dan Heath. No offense, Dan Heath, but
it's the
those
only
are
one
two
I
different
do.
levels.
I just have the one quote, so I always look for an excuse to share my quote that I've learned. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I hope this was useful to sort of think on what the elite level gym owners are doing. And if you're interested, I know we talked about a lot of things that we do at Business for Unicorns. If you want to find out more, I'm not sure what's all going to be in the show note for this one, but you can always just shoot us an email at hello@businessforunicorns.com, or you can go to go.businessforunicorns.com/brainstorm-call. And we can hop on the phone and tell you a little bit more about how we might be able to help you if you think we can be useful to you in any way. Have an amazing day. And Pete, I'll see you soon.
Good chatting, Mark. See ya.